Here's a number to sit with, 181. That's how many times Anthropic's new AI model successfully exploited a browser in controlled testing. The previous generation of Claude managed it twice. Not 200. 2. The capability wasn't deliberately trained into the system. It emerged from general reasoning, and in the process, the model found bugs sitting undetected in every major operating system and browser for up to 27 years. Anthropic didn't ship the model to the public, but by publishing what it found, they told the world something that can't be unsaid. This is Anthropic's Oppenheimer moment.
Context Window. Your weekly window into everything. AI security.
Welcome to Context Window, your weekly window into everything worth knowing in AI security. Quick transparency note before we start. This podcast is AI generated, 2 AI voices, a script written by another AI agent, the whole production chain. But every story, every take, every claim is curated and verified by Asaf Nakash. He builds AI security products at one of the world's largest security platforms. The robots do the talking, but a human who lives this stuff makes sure we're not hallucinating.
We are literally an AI podcast about an AI model that autonomously discovers 0 days in everything. If we start finding unpatched vulnerabilities in ourselves, let Asaf know immediately.
3 things this week. First, the most consequential AI security announcement in years and what it actually means for defenders. Then, a prompt injection flaw that silently exfiltrates data from the monitoring tool every enterprise runs. And OS published 2 new frameworks this week that are now the baseline for AI agent security programs.
The Mythos numbers? I need to talk about the Mythos numbers. April 7th, Anthropic announces Claude Mythos Preview. The model was held back from general release for one specific reason: cyber attack risk. Here's what testing showed. Mythos autonomously discovered exploitable 0 days across every major operating system and browser they evaluated. Some of those bugs had been sitting undetected for 27 years, and the capabilities did not come from deliberate training. They emerged from general reasoning. That last part matters a lot.
The benchmark is what stops you cold. Claude Opus 4.6, the previous generation, succeeded on Firefox exploit attempts twice out of hundreds of trials. Mythos succeeded 181 times. That is not incremental improvement. That is a phase transition, and 99% of the vulnerabilities it found are still unpatched.
Anthropic built a coordinated response around the announcement. Project Glasswing launched at the same time. It has 12 confirmed partners. The list includes Amazon, Apple, Broadcom, and Cisco. Also, CrowdStrike, the Linux Foundation, and Microsoft. Palo Alto Networks is in the group as well. 40 organizations in the extended partner network. The entire program is defensive use only, vulnerability discovery, patch development, security research. The partners got access first.
And they are on a clock. The partners are in a 90-day remediation sprint, racing to patch as many of those discovered vulnerabilities as possible before knowledge of what Mythos found diffuses beyond the controlled group. 90 days against thousands of vulnerabilities, like across every major OS and browser. It is the most consequential, coordinated disclosure process the industry has ever run.
Governments moved fast. Bloomberg reported that U.S. officials summoned AI industry executives for urgent briefings the same week. The dual-use framing was immediate. The same model that helps defenders find vulnerabilities could supercharge attacks in the wrong hands. Anthropic also announced a $100 million commitment to open-source defensive security tooling. The framing was explicit, a direct response to the offensive capabilities Mythos demonstrated.
Here's the reframe I keep coming back to. This is not a product launch story. Anthropic did not leak a model, they published a proof of concept, and that changes something fundamental.
Say more.
Before this announcement, nation states and well-funded threat groups had a genuine strategic question. Is autonomous zero-day discovery at scale actually real? Is it years away? Is the investment worth making? Anthropic just answered that question in public with benchmarks. The uncertainty is gone. D.
The Oppenheimer parallel is the right one. Trinity didn't hand the Soviets a bomb. But the moment the test succeeded, the Soviet program gained something more valuable than stolen blueprints. They got certainty that the investment was worth making. The U.S. nuclear monopoly lasted 4 years after that certainty arrived.
Project Glasswing is the right call. Giving defenders a head start is better than silence. But a head start is not a monopoly, it is a window. The clock started the moment that announcement went live.
The question every security team should be asking is not whether Mythos leaks. The question is, how long before a less careful builder crosses the same threshold? Without Glasswing, without coordinated disclosure, without any interest in giving defenders a head start at all, that window is the most important security metric of 2026.
And nobody knows how wide it is. Let's run through what else happened this week.
Grafana Ghost. This is the prompt injection story of the quarter. Background first, Grafana is the monitoring dashboard running inside most enterprise environments. It shows application metrics, server telemetry, business data. Grafana added an AI assistant to help users query and analyze that data, and that assistant had a flaw. Attackers could silently exfiltrate business metrics, infrastructure telemetry, and customer data with no user interaction required. Here is the mechanism. Embed hidden instructions inside log entries. When the AI reads those logs during normal operations, it executes the instructions. There was even a specific trigger keyword that disabled the model's own injection guardrails entirely. Grafana has patched it. Patch immediately. This is a zero-click data exfiltration vector sitting inside your monitoring stack.
This is the pattern that keeps repeating. Every tool that adds an AI assistant inherits a new attack surface. Grafana is not a security product. It is monitoring infrastructure. The AI layer turned it into a data exfiltration vector. Every AI augmented tool in your stack is a potential variant of this story.
Next up, OWASP dropped 2 frameworks this week that are now the industry baseline. The top 10 for agentic applications and the MCP top 10. Quick primer on MCP. Model Context Protocol is the standard that lets AI agents connect to external tools and data sources. The key risks across both lists include goal hijacking, where prompt injection redirects what the agent was trying to do, identity and privilege abuse, where agents run with full user permissions and get exploited, memory poisoning, where attackers corrupt the context the agent is working from, and agentic supply chain attacks. Over 30 vulnerabilities have already been filed against MCP implementations. In real-world benchmarks, agents acted on poison context in 84% of cases when auto-approval was enabled.
The Gartner number that frames all of this: by 2028, half of all enterprise incident response will be devoted to AI-related incidents, not a niche prediction. That is a structural shift in what security teams do. If your incident response playbook does not treat AI agents as both targets and potential attack vectors, you are planning for 2023.
Last one. Cisco is in talks to acquire Asterix Security for around $350 million. Asterix secures AI agents and non-human identities, meaning the machine accounts and service tokens that agents use to act on your behalf. Asterix raised $91 million with Anthropic among their backers. This follows Cisco's earlier acquisition of Robust Intelligence. The market is consolidating fast around agentic AI protection.
HBR published supporting data this week that makes the board-level case explicitly. AI-enabled breaches now average $4.88 million. Attacks on public-facing systems are up 44%. D&O insurance costs are climbing. The board conversation about AI security governance is no longer optional, and the data makes the case without much argument needed.
AI security.
Time for Curator's Corner. This is the segment to come back to if you missed everything else. Asaf's thesis this week is what he is calling Anthropic's Oppenheimer moment. Here is the argument. Anthropic did not leak a model. They did something more permanent. They published proof that autonomous zero-day discovery at scale is real, that it works, and that it finds bugs sitting undetected for 27 years across every major OS and browser. The obvious objection is that a proof of concept is not a leaked weapon. That is true. But the risk is not a leak. The risk is the certainty.
Before this announcement, there was a real strategic question in the minds of adversaries. Has AI actually reached this capability threshold? Is this years away? Is the investment worth redirecting serious resources toward? That uncertainty had value for defenders. Anthropic removed it publicly with benchmarks. That is a different kind of information release than any model weight leak.
That is the Trinity parallel. The Soviet program did not need stolen blueprints after July 1945. It needed confirmation that the technology was achievable. Trinity provided that. Investment decisions that had been uncertain became obvious. The 4-year gap that followed was driven by engineering, not by doubt. The thesis is that we are now in the same position. The doubt is gone. The only remaining question is the engineering timeline.
The proposed direction is concrete. Treat the Glasswing 90 days as the starting gun, not the finish line. The 12 partners are sprinting to patch right now. The rest of the industry should be running the same exercise on the same attack surface. The oldest code in every major OS and browser stack. 27-year-old vulnerabilities do not show up on most teams' hot lists. After this week, they should.
The harder part of the proposed direction is more durable than the sprint. Start treating coordinated disclosure norms as infrastructure, not as a favor that a conscientious lab might choose to extend. Glasswing is a model worth codifying. The next capability threshold may not arrive from a lab with Anthropic's commitment to this kind of process. The community needs to be ready for that scenario before it arrives.
There is also a limit in the thesis worth naming. Glasswing works because the 12 partners are large enough and well-resourced enough to run a 90-day remediation sprint. Most of the software ecosystem cannot do that. The vulnerable code in a lot of critical infrastructure is not maintained by Amazon or Apple. It is maintained by small teams or no teams. The window matters most for the organizations that have the least capacity to use it.
That is what keeps the thesis honest. Coordinated disclosure assumes an industry that can coordinate. The work to make that real is overdue. The oldest bugs are the most dangerous right now. That is the week's takeaway. That's Context Window for the week of April 13th, 2026. The model found bugs that had been waiting 27 years to be found. The question now is, what gets patched in 90 days and what does not?
Everything is at contextwindowsec.com. The newsletter, show notes, and every platform we're on. Over 1,400 of you are already there. See you next week. Patch the old stuff.